Hello Year 9 and welcome to another English lesson on poetry. This time we're focusing on the poem London by William Blake. Same process as last time. I'll talk to you a little bit about the context, so who Blake was. We'll read the poem, we'll do some work understanding it, and we'll make sure we consolidate our understanding. Obviously you've got the cats there as well, because why not? So, William Blake was a very famous romantic poet, romantic with a capital R. He rejected organised religion for loads of reasons. So he was Christian, but he didn't particularly like the church. It really infuriated him that the church kind of allowed injustices to happen and they didn't really help children in London who were forced to work. He lived in London, so he saw what sort of conditions people were living in. So he kind of wrote two collections of poetry. He wrote a collection called Songs of Innocence that were quite positive, and Songs of Experience that were kind of more about the darker side of life. So plague, prostitution, disease, all of that sort of stuff. And Blake liked to point out all of the negative things that were affecting all the cities in the UK. But he was trying to make a wider point overall about the demise of the world we live in. So he was obviously around during the Industrial Revolution, things like that, and he was really focused on nature. So what I would like you to do is, using the information that I've just told you, write down the key information in note form in your exercise books or on your Word document. What can you infer about Blake from this information? So what sort of person do you think he was? And what adjectives could you use to describe him? So I've kind of highlighted in red the bits of information that are important, but I'd like you to summarise it in your own words. So pause the video now, this should take you about 5 minutes. Okay, as it's obviously an older poem, there might be vocabulary that you're unfamiliar with. So I've created a little box here with words like forged, appalls, hapless, harlot, blightshurst, chartered, woe, manacles. What I would like you to do, please, is Google the definitions of those words and write them down. If you're feeling snazzy, can you identify a particular semantic field here? So can you see a theme? And equally challenging, as a romantic poet, how do you think Blake intends to portray London during the industrialisation? So at a bare minimum, write down the definitions for the words, and if you feel like giving yourself a bit of a challenge, please try those tasks too. Pause the video now. Okay, so this is the poem itself. I wander through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every ban, the mind-forged manacles I hear. How the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlots curse, blast the newborn infant's tear, and blights with plagues the marriage hearse. Excuse the lack of apostrophes, I copied and pasted that off the website. So that's the poem, and effectively it's the speaker walking through London and just seeing all this terrible stuff and how everyone is affected by it. So that's what the poem's about. So I'd like you to think about your initial responses. I'd like you to focus on just one colour depending on your level of confidence. So green is, what's the poem about and how do you know? Orange is, how does Blake feel about London? What evidence do you have for this? Try to find some quotes to prove your ideas. And finally, how's the poem divided up? So how do the different stanzas, that just means paragraph in poetry, help to get across the key themes of the poem? Sorry, that's my cat. And try to make reference to specific examples. So that should take you about 5 minutes. Pause it here and come back. Can we not? This is my life. Okay, so what I'd like you to do when you're writing out these notes is make sure you include the subheading up here. So, for example, I would write down poverty and inequality. And what I'd like you to do for these slides is just pick one colour to respond to in full sentences. So you'd have poverty and inequality, and if you're going for green, it seems like life for poor people is, whatever. So here, there's all the quotes that link to poverty and inequality in the poem. That's something that Blake was really passionate about. He hated the idea of inequality in society. So you might want to have a look at all these different words, all these different phrases. So again, confidence levels. If you're not very confident, think about what life is like for the poor people mentioned in the poem and use these quotes to help you to work it out. Orange. Why does it seem like the poor people have mind-forged manacles on them? And from your research earlier, you should know that manacles are kind of like handcuffs. And finally, what do these quotes show about the inequality in London between rich and poor? And how do you think Blake feels about this? Oh God, ignore that apostrophe. I don't know what's happened here. And make sure you use quotes. So, choose your level of challenge. Again, another 5 minutes, please. Pause the video now. Okay, so new subheading, the ignorant and callous rich, and you've got quotes again that refer to the rich. So pick one colour to respond to. Why does Blake repeat the idea of everything being chartered or owned in London? Or who lives in the palace? Why is it surrounded by walls? Why is there blood running down the walls? Like, what does it imply? Or finally, why does Blake focus on the wealthiest in society in the middle of the poem? And why are they separated from the other types of people? So another 5 minutes, pause it here, come back. The useless church and the use of sounds. So again, on the left, you've got the quotes that relate to this idea. And as I told you earlier, we spoke about how Blake kind of was disgusted by organised religion because of the inequality he saw, and he felt like the church wasn't doing enough. So pick your colour again. Why does each church appall or disgust Blake? Or why do you think the writer repeats the verb or noun cry 3 times? Who are the people crying? How does it affect the reader? And then finally, and this one's a bit trickier, you're thinking about the use of aural imagery, that's A-U-R-A-L, and all the sounds in the poem create a kind of cacophony, like it's a mix of sounds. Even though the people in the palace and the church can likely hear these awful noises, what do? And how does the use of sound then help to get across Blake's feelings about London to the reader? So again, pick one option, pause it here, come back when you're done. Okay, new subheading, life and death are the same. So in that very last line of the poem, Blake mentions a marriage hearse, which is kind of paradoxical. It doesn't really make sense because obviously marriage is like a new start and hearse is what's used to carry their bodies to the funeral. So, green, what's life like for the poor in London if you have to combine marriage with death? Orange, why does Blake combine marriage with death? If the poor couple marry each other, what are they doing to their lives? Or finally, by bringing together the contrasting or juxtaposing ideas of marriage and death in the final words, how is Blake able to emphasise the harshness of life for poor people in 18th century London? So these are the ideas I'd like you to focus on. And finally, sorry, you should have paused it there. You can work it out. Finally, I would like you to complete at least 3 boxes. So try to do different colours. And this is just to consolidate your understanding of the poem. Obviously, we will be returning to this in year 10 and 11, but it's really important that you have a decent understanding now. There's loads of resources available online as well to help you with this, but this task should solidify your understanding for now. So pause it here if you need to. I would spend between 10 and 15 minutes on this. And finally, please submit your work via assignments on Teams. You can copy and paste pictures up there. I know loads of you are doing the work, but you're just not really sending it through. But please do, because it's a way for me to know that you're engaging. Anyway, missing your faces as always. Take care, not long now. Bye!